What's trending in social media? Well, I'm going to tell you. This is a recent presentation we did for business owners in the Inland Empire, and we thought we'd pass the facts and figures on to you. Everything in here is cited, so if you guys are curious, you can follow it through. So let's get going. My name's Jon Burgess. I'm a senior consultant at RedFusion Media. We are your marketing department for hire, and this is what is trending in social media for the summer of 2014. This is meant for business owners and managers who are trying to understand what is going on in social media. How do you set your budgets and what should you prioritize? A lot of my customers and my colleagues talk about how much is going on, the amount of data that we're receiving and the amount of things that just are getting in front of us. This is a great illustration done by Domo. It's called Data Never Sleeps 2.0. You can search that. It's a great thing to show anybody. So much is going on. You look at emails, they still lead the list of activities for businesses. Over 204 million email messages are sent every day. YouTube, 72 hours of video are uploaded for every minute in the day. And as you see and probably feel in your business, there's a lot of chaos. And as we look at social media and what you should be spending your budgets on, it's important to really realize that you have to break through the clutter, but at the same time use the right media outlets. So how much is big data? I mean, it's hard to visualize how much is being built every day. So what is a zettabyte? Well, it's a lot of data. And when you think about the amount of data humans are making, in 2011 it was reported we did 1.8 zettabytes. In 2012, 2.8. I'm going to say we're probably about 4.0 now. And if you were to take in 2011 those 1.8 zettabytes and put them on iPads, you could fill 57 billion iPads. Those are like the 32 gigabyte iPads. And so if you were to stack all these iPads on top of each other, you could build the Great Wall of China twice as high as it is now. So if you think about 4 zettabytes that we might be doing today in 2014, we are looking at maybe 4 to 6 Great Walls of China of data being built every single year. So my clients always ask me, well, how do we build a plan? What do we do? I mean, there's so much going on. We need to break through the clutter, but at the same time understand that many of these social media outlets just don't work. And they don't work based on the business and the culture and the target market that you're looking for. We always look at personas and who actually buys from us. We also look at competitors and decide what are they doing in these spaces. So how do we build the proper sort of plan to help market our business? The other thing I have to talk about with clients is that, they see these pricings, say $500 a month to do social media. I'll be honest, that's just somebody stealing your money. It doesn't work because those platforms aren't really touching the customers in the way you need them. There should never be a one-size-fits-all plan in social media, so let's go ahead and take a look at this. Some social media experts may start with Facebook or Twitter, but I like to start with Google because in marketing, Google is the one place that always is trying to figure out who the expert is. And we believe in strong businesses that lead their marketplaces. And if you're not an authority, if you're not a leader, you really have a hard time doing any marketing. You can't just go down to the corner market and get yourself a good designer who understands your brand if they don't understand your market. And if you don't understand Google, I'm not sure you should be online. So all social media should start with the idea that Google has paved the way. How have they done this? Well, over 15 years or so, they have been changing the way they do business, and they've changed the way we do business. As they built search engines, they found out that they could find data, they could categorize it, but over time they found that there was a lot of fakers out there, and today we still find them. I see that there's fakers all the time, but they do a much better job. The first thing that happened is Panda. This little guy on the left helped us clean up the internet. Same with Penguin. Both were functions that caused search engine algorithms to clean up the way we see results. I could get into the technical gobbledygook, but you probably don't care. Recently, we've had Hummingbird, and so it's important to understand where these places of, information gathering and information dissemination are, and why the Google model is so important to start any social media conversation. So I believe there's only 2 things that matter in Google. First is authority, and authority isn't really what a cop would do. It's not a figure authority. It's the power to influence others, or the recognition that you have knowledge about something. So it's very important that as we talk about content with our clients, talk about positioning, that where we are planning our marketing activities and we're planning our communications, we always come from a place of authority. The second piece of authority is that once you've built authority, you are going to frame that in an expert sort of framework. And being expert online is very important. It's a person or organization who has a comprehensive and authoritative knowledge or skill about a particular area. So for our businesses, if they're not authoritative and if they're not expert on their niche, there's not much we can do in terms of good design, good communications, if we can't kind of have those two pieces work. And again, what happens in Google is that Google can figure out who is the authority on a subject, who is the expert on a subject. That is how they kind of work their magic in terms of the algorithms. The important parallel here is that if you can do the real thing in the real world and you can do the real thing on Google, you should merge your ideas and your thoughts and your communications on your social media platforms. Pick the social media platforms where your expertise and authority can shine. So most people don't know what Hummingbird is. And Hummingbird is quite honestly the biggest change to Google's algorithm in a long time. And what it does is try to attempt to understand the human language. And when we say things with a certain tone or inflection, we mean different things. So Google is trying to attack the problem of having so many mobile phones in the world and people talking into them. Those searches that come from the voice have different words in them, and they don't mean the same thing. And so Hummingbird really is their listening post to understand that the human language drives things, and that we as humans want to see things in a certain way when we're speaking. So it's an attempt to find natural language within the digital world, and it's really used to better understand your content. That means both in SEO, you have to write better human-like content, and in the rest of the world, you have to think about what social media means, and social being a very human, natural flow of language. So the bottom line is, for any business, is you can't act like a robot. You can't be a machine. And unfortunately, social media has already been taken over by so many auto posts and auto forwards and retweets, and there's so many things that are not human. It doesn't help when you just post and post and post and post the same old thing. And here I am in a picture. I had the opportunity to speak in front of a large convention. That was a social event. No different than if you go to a mixer and you speak with some friends, or you might be networking. That's a social place. Computers do not replace social interactions. And the whole moral of the story is that as a business, you have to act in a way that is actually social. And that's really the first determining factor of what sort of social media trends are going on, what social media platforms you should be on. Because if your brand can't be social in a few of them, it needs to be put in those social media outlets in which your brand can be social, and that you can have interactions and engagements that are valuable to your customer service, to your growth, to your interaction, to your retention of your current clients. So what does this really mean again? It's about a handshake, and I've been talking about this for years. I wrote papers on the handshake. I've understood business my whole life to be about relationships. Our firm has always understood that customer communications are always about what bird is in your hand, not the one that you're going to try to get. So therefore, marketing should always be about your customers first, what they do, what they like, how did you get them, and then how do you get more like them. And unfortunately, social media, advertising as a whole, sometimes thinks about branding in this big picture and not about the handshake. Okay, more Google. I know I've done a lot of Google already, but one of the most important things that businesses have overlooked is Google+. And Google+ really is steroids for some of the things you can do. The first reason is that you can control a lot more. If you have a Google+ account, you can control the things on the right of Google searches. You can also put pins on the map. It used to be, I guess, in a few places in Google that you could control this. Google Business, Google Local, Google Maps, but now it's just Google+. So first of all, you have to be a person. Once you're a person, you can have a business account. Once you have a business account, you can control a lot of things that show up. And so here's a search of RedFusion. You can see over on the left, we get some bonus points there with a little pinprick and where we're at. On the right side, we have our maps and photos. You even see my recent posts down there that include RedFusion Media. So it's just another place you can control the conversation about your business, and it's very important to have that pinprick done right. The second thing to Google Plus is authority. I touched on it earlier, but one of the things that Google has been working on secretly, I guess it's not secret, but not known to most business owners, is that you as a person are attached to the business, and you as a person really are the one that holds the knowledge. Businesses don't hold knowledge, people do. And Google for a couple of years has been looking at people and what they do in terms of creating content and what is authority. So they have this little thing called author authority, and they've been using it for a while now. And you can see in this example that my picture is over there on the left. I wrote a paper on managing millennials. I get a lot of traffic off of it. It's very highly cited. It's cited by universities, in fact. And what happens now is when I am attached to an article, it could be on RedFusion Media, it could be on any site, and I've attached it to my Google Plus account, it pulls my picture in there. There's a lot of places you can learn about this, and in fact, I've heard rumors say that they're going to start pulling the pictures back off. We'll see what happens there. But they're not going to change the fact that people themselves hold the authority of knowledge. So I think I've gone almost 10 minutes, maybe a little longer, into my presentation about social media, and I have not talked about Facebook. One of the things I think in terms of my client base, and in fact most clients, is that Facebook really doesn't work for your business. I have so many people come up to me and say, well, what should I do on Facebook? What should I do? What should I do? I say, who cares? It doesn't matter. The point is that Facebook is about faces, and businesses are not faces. When was the last time you had a face-to-face conversation and then a brand, a logo, let's just say a logo jumps into that conversation? It doesn't happen in the real world, and it doesn't really happen on Facebook. So I've been watching social media for years, and I've been on Facebook for years. And the real interesting thing, and what I've told my classes at the university level and at my speeches, is that Facebook continues to care less about your brand. And I had a great opportunity last month to go to a conference, and I saw the head of marketing for international marketing for Facebook pitch a bunch of advertisers why they should advertise on Facebook. And this isn't really a discussion about why you should advertise on Facebook. I think there's some really valid arguments there because you can get in front of your target market. But in terms of spending time on your page, on your product page or on your brand page, on your company page, however you see that, nobody is seeing your posts. A year ago, I used to say it was like 16% of people would see your posts. Now it's officially down to 2%, and every single bit of information I have seen says it's going to go to 0%. So as you're posting to your Facebook page, not your personal page, but your brand page, nobody is seeing those comments. And when I say nobody, it's going to be, yes, there's a few, 1%, 2%. And if you're in businesses that are maybe highly social, bars or events or concert venues, you'll see that still be around, and you might have a certain amount of traffic through it. But when we compare percentages in the effort of time to other medias, you start to think that direct mail might beat Facebook, and other old school traditional marketing outlets will start to beat Facebook on what was traditionally considered like free advertising. So again, Facebook is getting down to about 2% of your posts are being read. I'm going to say it's going to go to 0 in the next year, so be ready for that and don't spend more time on your Facebook pages. So I did say something about dollars for advertising in Facebook, and a lot of data is out there about why Facebook has taken the position that your fans, the fans of your page, should be looked at as a great cost-effective advertising distribution channel. So when you think about what Facebook is doing, they want free people on there, lots of millions and millions of people, and they don't mind advertising. That helps their bottom line. They have to pay for things, and they like to make money. So advertise within Facebook. So that could be through a promoted post, or you could buy advertising to find fans. But at the end of the day, your ability to freely get in front of people is just no longer going to be there. You're going to have to pay. Now, does Facebook paid ads matter? I think they can be very effective. We've compared them to other medias. We've compared them to Google, to print. And there's a place there that you might find some really good cost-effective outreach to look at it, but it needs to be from an advertising budget point of view. The last innovation from Facebook is that they do want to know everything they can know about people. That's really what they're doing. That's why advertising works fairly well in there. And their innovation coming out very soon is a new part of the app, that's for all the mobile phones, that will turn on your microphone on your iPhone or on your Android that listens to the surrounding sounds, whether that's a TV show, a radio song playing, whatever's going on. Facebook will now take these little snippets while you post, and they'll upload them to a server. That server decodes what it is and appends a statement to your post. That, to a lot of people, can be very scary, and people think about privacy issues with Facebook. Well, this is one of those things where Facebook is again trying to figure out who you are and what you're doing. Let's hope they don't have a big brother problem with that and they do worse things with it. But I think it scares a lot of people, the ability to hear what is going on, and it's breaking down some walls. So something to know about, something that's coming right now. How social are you? Well, you can find out. One of the tools we use a lot just to kind of get a bearing on what our social effectiveness is a place called Clout. Just like the real world, you have a certain amount of clout. And so they took the idea online and they measure your clout ranking. On this little graph, I have a 60, which is fairly high. I'd say most people I know don't have a 60. But it has to do with how much are you actually engaging your followers within social media. So if you're the type of business that has built a lot of followers, but they're not very engaging, you're going to have a low score. I don't have a lot of followers, but I have a lot of engagement. So it's important to kind of balance the idea of having real conversations that are back and forths versus just blowing out content in your media channels on Twitter or Facebook or Instagram. So a fun little tool to look at. If you're going to hire a social media person that doesn't have a cloud of over like 50, I'd think again about that. How much should you spend on social? I get this question asked of me all the time in education, in real business, and I tend to think I'm on the low ball. I low ball everything, and I think that social media doesn't justify big budgets. Most of our clients are B2B and in services and industrial and manufacturing, and we have a few that do in the $50 million a year range. We have some that are in the plus 100 million. But when I look at budgets and what a marketing budget should be, and then you kind of take into account how much of your marketing should be used in social, you end up with some pretty small budgets. If you're a industrial business and you do say $2 million a year, I'd let you pay about $33 a month in social media fees. Most of our clients, they range under the 50 million. So we're not spending $500 a month on clients in social media. We're rarely spending more than 2 hours in a month on social media. So that's really where you should think about your budgets. If you're on the consumer product media side of business, I'd inflate that a little bit. And a $50 million service business can have a lot of dollars being spent in social media because there should be a social lubrication happening there, and you can justify bringing on full-time people to deal with customer service or to promote the business. However, again, I tend to lowball this. I'm not anywhere near some of my competitors on this. I've seen posted results of our competitors saying that they'll do just flat rates of $500 a month. I think that's just, that's not responsible, and that's not going to the effectiveness of social media. Over hundreds of our clients, we have the ability to look at what goes on, and the best case scenario for leads coming to a website end up being about 2.5% of all traffic. So if you think about your traffic on Google, your traffic on direct visits to your site, and your traffic from social media generally drives under 1%, the best case scenario 2.5%. So if you think about your budget in terms of percentages, would you spend more than 1% of your budget, maybe 2% of your budget on gathering that traffic to your website? I'd say no, and I think we've been fairly successful at understanding how that works. So again, I advocate lower, more responsible social media budgets than any of my competitors I see out in our industry. And I would say that if you were to look at doing, say, a $500 a month retainer on social media, you're being swindled. It just doesn't require that much in most of the businesses we touch to do social media. You should think about it in 1 hour, 2 hour increments. It's not that expensive, and it's not that worthy of some of these larger budgets you see. The last social media thing I have is not really social media at all. It's really Amazon. And we worry about Amazon for our industrial clients. We worry about them for our manufacturing clients. There's some very interesting challenges that happen within channel distribution, channel sales, and even direct-to-consumer stuff. The big thing is they came out with a phone this week, and that's cool. Great, another phone. The really cool feature that all people need to know that is rather social is that they have a function called Firefly. If you were to take a picture of anything, it's going to take that and put it in its database and figure out what it is. If it's a book, if it's a TV, if it's another phone, it's going to say, wow, this is a book, and we can sell it to you. Wow, this is a phone, we can sell that to you. So in terms of a social sort of shopping tool, very interesting, very innovative. It will make you think about your brand in new ways as we move forward, that your brand needs to kind of embody something maybe a little bit bigger than the packaging so that it can be sold in other places by visuals alone. So if you've watched all the way through, again, I'm Jon Burgess. I'm the Senior Digital Consultant for RedFusion, and we are your marketing department for hire. We tend to gravitate to industrial and manufacturing type clients, or B2B. We have a lot of knowledge in that, and you can find more knowledge at our blog at redfusion.com. Lots of things that we think are cool and interesting. You can find me if you just search Jon Burgess. You'll find me on LinkedIn at Jon Burgess and Twitter at Jon Burgess and all other places at Jon Burgess. So check us out.